G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing a review of a documentary from the USA. It was actually American, it's spoken in English, but it was shot in Norway, and it's about Norwegian black metal. So I'm going to say it's a Norwegian documentary, although it is spoken in English. Released in the year 2008, directed by Aaron Aites and Audrey Yule, and this movie is called Until the Light Takes Us. And the story to this documentary is as follows. Until the Light Takes Us tells us the story of black metal. Part music scene and part cultural uprising, black metal rose to worldwide notoriety in the mid-90s when a rash of suicides, murders and church burnings accompanied the explosive artistic growth and output of a music scene that would forever redefine what heavy metal is and what it stands for to other musicians, artists and music fans worldwide. Until the Light Takes Us goes behind the highly sensationalized media reports of Satanists running amok in Europe, to examine the complex and largely misunderstood principles and beliefs that led to the rebellion against both Christianity and modern culture. So this movie centers upon black metal in Norway in the mid-90s and the sensationalized media reports of generalizing everybody with black metal to Satanism, because during the 90s there was a lot of suicide, murder and church burnings, and this was all painted under the satanic genre in music known as death metal. So the movie interviews some very influential death metal Norwegian artists, and it really tells the story of what they were trying to do with their rebellion and how things got out of hand in some circumstances. So that's what I'm going to give you on the synopsis. If you want to know more, please go out there and see this film for yourself. Now, my thoughts on this documentary. I am not a death metal fan. In fact, I think, to me, it makes me very uncomfortable. So I'm the first to admit that I'm not a fan of this genre. So I was umming and ahhing about whether or not I would enjoy this documentary because of the fact I am not really into the scene. And I thought that it would be one of those documentaries where they would idolize these sort of death metal musicians, and for anyone who's not a fan of death metal wouldn't get anything out of it. So I had hesitations. My expectation levels weren't very high, but I was absolutely surprised by what I got in the end. And I would say that even if you're not a black metal fan, I would still definitely go out there and check this out, because surprisingly, death metal in this documentary takes a back seat. This is really a film about generalization, how unfair people's opinions can be based on what the media tell us. And they paint the media themselves paint monsters, and it gets out of hand. And this is exactly what the documentary is telling you. So I was surprised to see that it does have death metal music, but it doesn't have too much of it. And even someone like me can go into it and really try and understand what it's all about and what these musicians were trying to do. No, they're not satanic sort of worshippers. Some of them might be, but these were very smart people, and what they were trying to do is redefine what their sort of genre in music was, and that they were rebelling against society, because society tells us what to do. They say you have to do this, this, and that, basically giving you a routine. But death metal was the one that was going to say, that's what I think of your routine, and this is what we're going to do. So they wanted to make something that would be very memorable, and therefore that's where death metal and the satanic sort of feel that this music has was very, very different. So as it says, one of the people getting interviewed, he says, you're going to take notice if something hits you very hard. If it's very, very different, that's the only way you're going to get noticed. And I can appreciate death metal for what it tried to do. And unfortunately, that brought a lot of negativity, because there were a lot of suicide, murders and church burnings. Now, this is stuff that I do not condone at all. I think it was absolutely repulsive. But to label all of black metal as satanic, and that these people are freaks and arsonists and all kinds of other things, I think it was very unfair, because the actions of certain individuals basically had a massive input into how the whole black metal was labelled. And that is a natural thing. Generalizations happen all the time, that you're from one particular group. If one person messes up, then the whole lot are being painted with the same brush. And it is easier to do that. It's easier just to say that they're all freaks, push them all aside, and I'm just going to continue doing what society tells me. But then you stop and you think to yourself, when I get to know these people, it's a lot different. And I am the first to admit that death metal made me very uncomfortable, and that anyone who had the death metal sort of look, I wanted to stay away from. And so when I saw this movie, I saw Varg Vikernes, who was interviewed. He was actually, at the time of this documentary, he was in jail, so he was being interviewed from prison. And I thought, this guy's a freak. He burnt all these churches. He did terrible things. But when he's talking, what the documentary does so well is that it doesn't label him as a bad guy or a good guy. It doesn't play the blame game. He's in jail. He's doing his time. We know he did something wrong, and the documentary is not trying to rub that in. The documentary is trying to get an insight into his motives. And although it's not condoning his motives, it's giving you an understanding of what this guy was about. And he was actually quite intelligent. And what he was saying, some of it was making sense. And I kind of felt to myself that my own generalization was creeping up on me, and that I was generalizing this guy without really even knowing that myself. So it's a very subtle approach that the directors have, and I thought it worked really, really well, because after a while you notice yourself that you're labeling black metal because of the actions of one certain person. And because I heard all these bad things about Varg Vikernes, I put him aside and I just said to myself, he's pure evil. And yes, he might be evil, but I learnt things about Varg Vikernes that I didn't know before because of my generalization. And I think that the directors, because they don't generalize themselves, they give you an opportunity to get an insight into these musicians, and you get an understanding and appreciation of what they were trying to do, the motives behind black metal, and that black metal was trying to separate itself, and it was trying to basically break free of what society's telling us. So black metal, although I don't like it at all, I still think, it is a very important sort of part, not only in the music, but to society as well, because these are people who wanted to be different. And I think that the directors did a great job at letting other people who aren't fans of black metal to come into the debate as well, to give you an understanding. It's not chock-a-block full of death metal imagery. It is a movie that is easily accessible, but having said that, it is rated R18 for a reason. This is very disturbing stuff. If you're a sensitive Christian, you are not going to like this movie at all. Now, I am a devout Catholic. I'm very proud that I'm a Catholic, but I'm very secure in my religion. So if someone else, like in this movie, this documentary, it's very, guess you could say, blasphemous. There's a lot of church burnings. There's a lot of talking about the contradictions of Christianity. So if you're not secure in your religion and you're very sensitive, I would say stay very, very far away from this film, because it makes no attempt to basically gloss anything over. It's very raw and it's very in your face. So stay away if you are overly sensitive. It's got some very disturbing imagery. It does talk about Satanism, so if you don't like that sort of satanic sort of stuff and that you're easily offended, once again, stay away from it. It's got some very bizarre imagery. It's got some very hard-hitting photographs of suicide, so be very careful going into that as well. So it is a movie that is, while it's very interesting, it is extremely provocative. Now, unfortunately, the movie does come with its problems. Now, the problems I had is that it interviews the two main players in Norwegian black metal. You've got Varg Vikernes and Fezrum. I can't remember his proper name, but I'm going to call him Fezrum. I could be wrong, but I just can't remember. Anyway, it interviews these two main guys, and I thought it would have been better if I got the input from a few other people as well. Now, there's opinions from other people in the film, but the main focus is on these two musicians, and I thought it would have been better to have the focus equally on others as well, because it would have given the film a little bit more depth. But having said that, that is not a massive criticism. I actually thought that the film works very well. It does drag in a few places towards the end, but thankfully it doesn't drag enough to really make you notice it. So all in all, what you get from this one is a very, very thought-provoking documentary about a very misunderstood genre in music, that is black metal. I would highly, highly recommend it. If you want a documentary that is really going to challenge you, Until the Light Takes Us is definitely one to have a look at. Even if you're not a black metal fan, I would still say give it a go, because it will allow you to get into it, because black metal is a secondary thing in this film. It's mainly about rebellion, what society is telling us, and also generalizations, and what is easy and what is basically turning a blind eye to the real things in the world. And for that, I can applaud what the directors did, and I thought they pulled it off very well. So all in all, I'm going to give this one 4 stars, a very thought-provoking documentary that I would say go and see. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.